you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole...
My great aspiration, my greatest ambition is to be so good. Now, in that way, I'm tiresome, as I suppose, to live with, because I want to be a fantastic human being.
I am the greatest. We're not disputing that, Cash. It's how does Sonny Liston feel about it? He can't feel but one way, and let's take everything I say and like it. Because February the 25th, I'm going to take back my job. I'm the champ. He's no champ. He's a tramp.
When you see men fall, don't laugh. Learn. Learn. Because you're on your way up. And the things that tempt people to fall, you and I are not free from that temptation.
What up, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, Facebook, what's good? Talk to me nice. It is Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, and it's an honor and a privilege to be here once again with the good people of social media. We got some things to talk about tonight, folks. We got the family back together again. I'm excited. If you didn't catch us earlier, we had a nice little discussion. Go check that out if you haven't. This particular one is going to be a little more unique. Before we go into the discussion, make sure that you're following everyone from the panel. Shout outs to my writers, my poets, content creators, all across threads and IG. Salutes to all of you. I'm gonna bring my co-host up for tonight, and I'm gonna let them do their thing, their intros or whatever, and then we're going to get into the discussion. So grab you something to drink, get comfortable, and I will see you in a second. Sydney and Jason, talk to me.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Jason. Good to see you.
Great to see you as always.
Good evening, folks.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
I was just gonna
what
say.
You got special in that mug?
Oh my gosh, we started at the same time. We have. I was just gonna say, for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Science Squid on Instagram and Threads, but on here I'm Sydney. My bad. You're good.
I was just being nosy because he always got that mug, man, and and it just dawned on me. Whoa, what's in that cup? I need to know what you drinking on right now. Maybe I need
Black
to get me
coffee.
something to. All right, okay.
The
All
perfect
right.
conversation.
Yes. Coffee is the elixir of life, and I drink it black like my soul.
It's all good, man. Okay. I have a threads question. I made a post. I basically said, if you have any topics or any discussions that you would like us to target specifically, leave them. I will bring it to the table, and we'll see what we can do with it. And someone responded. Now, I don't want to slaughter their name, so I'm just going to say K. This one comes from K. And the question was, what makes someone an adult? Is it the way they dress, the job, or how much money you're earning? Do you think, is it internal or external or both? When you have a family, how do you know you're grown up? That was the question. So we can go around with our initial thoughts. I just thought that was an interesting one, simply because everybody can be legally the age of 18 and still not carry themselves like an adult. So, uh, Sid, if you want to start us off, and we'll go around, the floor is yours.
I think the question itself poses a really interesting debate. The first part really came to mind for me, where they asked about clothing, which I thought was really, really interesting, because I would never expect something external, like superficial, to designate your age. And it just kind of makes me think of the moms that put their children into clothing that are more adultified. And it just makes me think, like, oh God, like that slippery slope that we're going to try and consider like young people adults, which I don't even want to go there. But I definitely don't think superficial things should be able to designate our age. Um, and I also don't think life circumstances should really be like, they can be a symptom of maturity, but I don't think they should be a indication of maturity. A diagnosis of maturity. Oh, everyone who's married is now mature. I definitely don't, or like, oh, you have a house, so now you're automatically a mature adult. I do not believe that. I think from a purely biological standpoint, I think they're really, like, adulthood is when you are A, sexually mature, and B, biologically, like, physically mature. Your body has stopped growing up, has stopped developing its body parts, because that is complete. I think that would constitute an adult. And so I would say technically 18 is a fairly reasonable age to consider somebody an adult. But I do also see the argument for pushing it to like 21 or 25. I don't actually remember where the 21 came from for the vodka, or for drinking. Um, but 25, I still can kind of see that as an adult, even though I know everyone between 18 and 25 would be pissed off that I'm promoting this. But I do think that there could be a case made, just because of how like the brain development is, and the hormonal changes, how it starts to shift once you hit about 25. But I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint exactly, because it does vary by gender, and it does vary by like life circumstance, trauma can, if it's very severe trauma, delay growth a little bit. And then also, like, if you have underlying conditions that can affect like your development and stuff like that. But I think like between 1820s, that's definitely around the time that like we become adults.
So yeah, this is a huge topic. The question's kind of like a bomb because it just touches so many things, and none of them are left unscathed. Because you can look at the biological marker of adulthood, but if you look at that, then you have to consider 16 as a possibility of being adult, because adulthood is marked biologically is marked by the onset of puberty. People enter puberty between the ages of 12 to 14.
Mm-hmm.
So does that make someone an adult? Their ability to bear children? Legally, the government would say no, because here in the United States and Canada, the legal age is 18. That's what constitutes an adult.
Yeah.
But do really people act like adults at the age of 18? Are they ready for life's circumstances and to meet those circumstances on their own without the support needed that they've had from 17 and younger? And in some cases, that's for some cases. Some people don't leave the house until 35. So does that mean that they're not adults yet? I mean, it's really there's so much going on here. The physiological ideas of adulthood, such as self-regulation, independence, and perspective taking. So these are another thing that you have to look into account. And some people don't actually. Some people never manage these. They live a ripe old age without having be able to take on a certain perspective, think critically, or develop a sense of meaning or purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that they're not adults? With socially, what makes an adult? So now we're looking at the ability to leave home and enter long-term relationships or start families or contribute to society through work or service. Does this make an adult? Well, there are people at many different ages, including those who are not legally adults, who have entered the workforce, who are in long-term relationships or leave home for certain circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
In what area do they fall? What about those who expatriate themselves at a young age, at the age of 16, if they say that they're their own person and they want to be expatriated from their parents for various reasons? So here's what I take. I like, Lindsay, I like your take on it. Sydney, sorry, as you rounded this up, because I look at it from development of brainwaves. And brainwave development, someone who's studied hypnotism and the unconscious mind in detail, there are four major brainwave states that we go through in our development.
Yeah.
The first one is between the ages of 0 and 2, which is delta. The delta doorway is considered the doorway of the soul and has no cognitive understanding or memory retention at all. After that, you have theta. Theta is what we consider now as adults to be the deep dreaming state. But this is the state from the ages of 2 till 8, where our brains are developing a sense of who we are as people, our ability to understand our world from those who take care of us during those formative years. Then you've got the alpha state. The alpha state is from age 8 to about age 16. And this is the light dreaming state, but this is also the learning stage, the idea of being able to take our meanings and turn them into the formation of our personality. And then you have beta, which is from the age of 16 onwards. And even in here, you have a light theta, which is from 16 to 25. And in this area, you're beginning to take on a certain personality. You're beginning to understand your world in a conscious way and interact with it, but you're still taking in way more information than you are expressing. Upon the age of between 23 and 25 is when you enter a full beta brainwave state, and that's what's called the conscious awareness. And that is what you, Sydney, Mel and myself are currently experiencing right now as we're entering this debate, as we're having usually. Sometimes I dip into a light alpha because I like to daydream, or I like to, I like to intuit certain information, but that's beside the point. For the most part, we activate on a beta brainwave state. And this is what I consider to be the seat of consciousness, the seat of our ability to understand our world and manipulate it in a way that is based on the values that we have grown up with and the values that we have taken from those beliefs and understandings to apply them to our world. So if we're looking, it really depends on how you want to look at it. There's so many ways that you can approach this argument, and all of them have their own interpretation, which is why this argument sucks. Because there are so few ways of being able to understand what really makes an adult and quantify it in a way that everyone has consensus on. Because one, we have a government that says this is what adulthood is, mainly because they need to come up with a number and they have no idea what the hell they're doing on the best of days. And secondly, because people want to have their own agenda in order to achieve a certain outcome. So it's hard to quantify it because behavior doesn't create. I mean, if you don't look at behavior, it's impossible to gain any kind of real consensus on what something is. I like to take my information um, from sources that have done a lot of research. My favorite book to read, for really reasons I can't tell you, is the Psychodynamic Diagnostic Manual. It's a psychological textbook, basically. I like reading textbooks. And it's by far one of the greatest manuals to help people understand and profile behavior. And if you really want to gain a good understanding of how people behave, how they think, and how they come into their own, that's a good book to start with. But unless we have a consensus on what things mean and what those meanings apply to our behavior and development, we're never going to have any kind of consensus on what really is an adult. And I'm going to yield the mic.
I like what both of you said. It's a scary position to be in, given the circumstances as you just described, Jason, because we can't necessarily rely on the government to determine for us what is an appropriate age to be considered an adult, but then also at the same time we still have to have the common sense to say 7 years old is not an adult. Don't you go there trying to touch or talk to that little child. That is inappropriate. So there still has to be reason there, but then at the same time it's like, well, if I can't necessarily trust you to say, all right, 18 is where technically you're old enough to do certain things, but you're still not considered an adult, because this argument has been brought up a lot of times where you will have men and women going at each other about, oh, he's too old to be talking to her, or she's a cougar for talking to him. But you can still go to the bar and buy cigarettes or have a drink or two. Then also, in some cultures, you can get married at 16
or younger.
Yeah, so it's weird to me that this is so discombobulated, where we don't exactly have a fixed understanding on what do you consider an adult, from a social setting, from just a moral compass. And I do believe, at least for the most part, that having certain boundaries, and when you reach what you say, that beta stage, I can't remember the phrase.
Beta brainwave state.
Right. When you reach that portion of your life, and you understand reasoning and understand context, and you know how to deliberate right from wrong, and you can kind of determine what's a leader, what is a follower, um, how do you manage responsibilities, bills, etc., having a family, things of that nature. That should be taken into consideration. Now, the tricky part is there are people who are just irresponsible, and they still will have families, and they still will deal with the opposite gender and get into these situations with people as an adult, and still don't act like an adult. They'll still act like they're in high school. They'll still act like they're being brought up by their parents, and they're spoiled rotten, and you can't say no to them or take their toys away because they'll throw a fit. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with both of you, especially when you said it's very difficult to really determine what is what. But I do think that there are at least a couple of things that we can say. This is what makes you that. Maybe it's not so black and white for everything, but at least some portions of it. And I yield.
And I think context really matters, because if you're talking, I think part of the reason why the adult topic is so difficult is because it applies to so many different areas, like driving a car in some places, buying a house, getting married, taking drugs, like curfews and stuff like that. And it you can't kind of set an age for all of those things. You can't say like, oh, you have to be an adult to do all of these things, because it it will kind of unfairly treat people. For example, if you applied like, oh, you have to be an adult to do drugs and join the military and get a car and get a house and stuff like that, there's going to be people that are going to be set back from milestones, while other people are going to kind of get almost an unfair advantage. They might get access to something that they wouldn't have before. And so I think that's why it's so difficult to kind of set an age for adulthood and apply it to actual things in society, because people, one, who are in that age range won't want to accept a change in their access to things. And then also it could, one of the other things that I was thinking of is people with disabilities. It could potentially change the way that they have access to care or access to treatment. And it could potentially leave them more vulnerable if the law type of phrasing that they use begins to leave people out using, because I know they tend to weaponize words, and I could definitely see a case where they weaponize the word adult and start to prevent people from having access to certain resources using the definition of the word, and like not allowing people to be under that particular umbrella, if that makes sense.
So this is an area where I slightly disagree, because the idea that defining a term such as adult is going to create problems, I can see some areas where that might happen, but for the most part, I don't believe that it would be that kind of an issue. Mainly because, well, first of all, the idea of access is a red herring, and the reason why I believe that is because saying that having a certain timetable for access to certain things, we already have that for many things. So you can't rent a car unless you're 23, I believe, especially in the United States and Canada.
I think some places it's even like 25 or 27 too.
Right. So, and then for alcohol, you can't consume that in the United States unless you're 21. You can't buy a house or apply for a mortgage. There are actually many more criteria other than being at least 21 years old and being able to demonstrate credit. So we already have certain standards for certain things. My belief is that the entire structure of understanding adulthood needs to be changed. If I were to do it, this is what I would do. So I would actually base it on the M-axis of the PDM2. The M-axis is what defines the 12 mental capacities that a person must have at a well-adjusted era or a well-adjusted way. And this is also going to address your argument about those who are developmentally delayed or those who have deficiencies. So in order for a person to be considered an adult, you have to go through 12 evaluations for mentalization and reflective functioning, for self-esteem regulation and quality of internal experience, for impulse control and regulation, construct and use internal standards and ideals, affect regulation, regulation, attention and learning, social connectedness, perspective taking, relationships and intimacy, defensive functioning, complex thinking, and meaning and purpose.
Interesting.
So through having those 12 evaluations and a person being rated as well-adjusted, yes, they're considered an adult. I believe that by the age of 16, there should start being a mandatory mentorship for men and women so that they are able to understand what it means to be an adult. This includes having a process available that helps to shore up any deficiencies that might be had. The earlier that they exist, the more difficult it is to address. Not impossible, just more difficult. And through that 9-year period from 16 to 25, a person goes through this process of understanding what they need in order to become well-adjusted. If they can't be, they're a totally different category. If there is a delay, if there is a deficiency, a disability, or developmental incapacity, that is something completely different. But that's also an outlier. We need to focus on the constructive normative, as I'm going to call it. And in doing this, what you do is you create an evaluation to understand, yes, this person is an adult. Will it take them 9 years to complete? Probably not. Most of them. However, they have that 9-year space in order to understand what is necessary to develop the core skills and core educations they must complete in order to reach adulthood. Fun fact, most universities, people go to school when they're 18. They don't come out until they're 24, 25 anyway. So to have this kind of university type training would be really no different. It would be the same. It would be a similar vein of being able to help someone understand what they need to understand and what they need to continue development in order to become a well-adjusted, contributing member of society that can be considered an adult, who is then told you are on your own, you are responsible for your decisions, and you will be held accountable for your actions. Good luck. And then they're given the chance of being able to strike their own in life and be able to make their way. I think that would be a much more constructive way of being able to evaluate adulthood.
I agree. That sounds very well developed, and I also think that would probably help a little bit with the issue of people getting into college too early because they think that they want a specific career, and then they find out all the way through or halfway through that they decided they wanted a different career, or they even graduate with a degree that they hate. I think I've always wanted something like that available for people, where it actually helps people understand what their strengths and weaknesses are and how they can utilize it and how they can find kind of a path that works for them, as opposed to just kind of getting shoved into like, all right, figure it out, you have 4 years.
Well, I think that this kind of thing needs to be a part of curriculum that people would go through as they are learning a trade, especially once they reach the age of majority, whether it be 18 or whatever. Even starting at 16 wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Being able to have this evaluation set in addition to the occupational training that they would have, because a person is really their value is based on what they contribute, and whether that be a job, whether that be raising a family, it's all contributing. But in order to do that, we have to have a basic understanding of what is most important.
Yeah.
In my model, the most important thing is the evolution of humanity, the ever advancing civilization, and what it takes in order to create that.
Mhm.
But yeah, again, that this is if I were running things, and clearly I'm not, because we don't have this.
You should
So
be.
I yield the mic.
I want to throw something out there because we spoke about this. Was it earlier? It was either earlier or yesterday. I agree with what you said, and I do believe you should start at a young age with your children. Do you think there's a correlation with, or how can I reframe this? What's the difference between grooming and parenting someone into having the proper tools to become an adult? Because like we spoke about this before, and I just want to give people like a clear understanding that there is a difference between the two. But for me, like, I know, even though I don't have children, I know that even beginning around 4 or 5 months, probably even a little later, that kids are developing. They're hearing, they're seeing, they're observing and watching everything that you're doing. They're sponges for information.
Mhm.
So I've seen cases where they do studies and they've shown that you should get them right when they're kind of fresh, put them in spaces where they have the best chances of getting certain information given to them. I'm not talking about all of the demonic stuff. I'm talking about like the healthy stuff. Uh what is the difference between someone that is grooming their child and actually trying to develop them with the proper fundamentals, the 12 that you gave and described, versus someone that's trying to program them to be something that they will inevitably regret later on?
Um, Fundamentally, one of the biggest indications that a child is being groomed and not parented is the parent is disregarding the child's best interest, the child's own personal focuses, like what they personally want to do, and the parent has some sort of ulterior goal that they're kind of shepherding their child to, whatever that goal may be. And ultimately, a parent will support their child's self-efficacy. They're teaching their child to do things for themselves. They're not teaching their child to be reliant on the parent. So really, it's the biggest difference is whether or not the parent is encouraging independence or encouraging dependence on the parent.
So the one thing that I can say, the one word that I would use to define the difference would be intention.
Mhm.
And someone who is grooming, and I hate the fact that that word has been co-opted or has been hijacked to
Mhm.
mean a very nefarious thing. Because it isn't necessarily, but we'll call it manipulation.
Mhm.
When a child is being manipulated, it's usually because of a parent's self-serving desires
Mhm.
of what they want to have happen. One of the most important of the 12 capacities that I listed is called mentalization and reflective functioning. And this is the ability for a parent to, one, see their child separate from them and treat them as an autonomous agent who has the capacity to become a fully functional adult of their own accord, who's going to have autonomy over their own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, decisions, and actions.
Mhm.
And then also to support a child to see themselves as separate from their parents, who has those potentials, and to be able to reflect on those potentials on their own and see how they can change, grow, and develop. So if a parent is going to violate that, they're going to be the parent that controls their child and forces the child to see themselves as an extension of their parent,
Mhm.
which is child abuse. And anything that goes, anything that violates this mentalization, reflective functioning, is child abuse,
Mhm.
because you're violating a child's natural tendency to be a potential independent agent in of themselves with autonomy. If you are not doing that, you are failing as a parent. And I yield the mic.
I just had to ask that question, just off the strength that we're talking about what an adult is, what qualifies in this as an adult, and all I can keep thinking about is well, all we seem to attribute to it is numbers and statistics. And if you're 18, this makes you this. If you're 21, this makes you this. But we know better than that. We absolutely know better than that. So given those 12 that you just stated, and from both of you describing, and I agree, I don't like the term grooming. I don't know where or why. I think the word has been sensationalized to mean something negative because folks want to use it as an excuse to get or evade some sense of accountability for whatever argument they're involved in with somebody where they disagree with one party or one's view on something. But I don't know. It's first of all, just to address some of the stuff. Clothes don't make an adults. Paying bills, eh, you can pay bills, and I don't know. Is it really? And I'm honestly asking: is it really that difficult to pinpoint or say that there are no defining elements to describe someone being an adult overall? At least one. I mean, you gave 12. I don't necessarily I don't necessarily believe everybody is operating on all 12. Like if I'm being honest, some people have 4, some people have 3, some people have 6, some people have 8, some people have 9. I don't think everybody has all of it, but I mean, I digress. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
What if someone doesn't like their rating?
That's a them problem.
I thought the one, I think it was
said-
like the second or third to last one that you mentioned, the aggressive tenacity or something like that. I thought
Defensive functioning.
yeah, defensive functioning. I thought that was, is that related to like how aggressive do you get when you're confronted?
No, that has to do with your ability to defend yourself and others from either argument or from danger.
Okay.
So this is something that usually gets much more well developed. This is why boys tend to be more aggressive around the ages of 12 and so on, because they're developing their sense of defensive functioning. It's normal. They're beginning to have a greater development of vasopressin, which is the hormone that is predominantly in men, that is responsible for building community as well as protection and defense. So boys tend to roughhouse around that time and get and sensationalize things such as violence because they are learning that the sense of defensive functioning.
Interesting. I'll have to look more into that. I didn't know about that.
And yes, every single person is going to have a rating of 1 to 5, where 5 is the most well developed and 1 is damn. That a person is going to rate somewhere on. Every single person develops these 12 naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of interruption or outside of traumatic events that either delay or inhibit the growth of these 12 capacities, every single person is going to develop them naturally. Most people aren't even aware of them. When you are aware of them, this is where the magically happens. And this awareness, for most people who have any kind of real sense of who they are, or who have a desire to learn more about their capacities as a person, usually happens around 40 years old. This is when you're understanding that time is ticking by. You are aware of your biological clock, that you aren't going to live forever, and so you have the sense of wanting to better yourself and create some kind of legacy or create some kind of permanence.
I wonder if that's behind the divorce rate.
Say again?
I wonder if that's behind the divorce rate. Like women, because I know it's about 40 that women, there's a higher rate of divorce or in a woman's 40s. I wonder if it's because at that point she's hit with that sense and she doesn't know what to do with it. So her first thought is just to like flee.
I think that actually might be a really strong indicator. There are other indicators that deal with that, but that's astute observation that absolutely deserves more looking into that. As far as when a person becomes more aware of their sense and they want to better themselves, they become more aware of some of these ideas, especially with their sense of purpose and meaning, which is more of an adulthood type of capacity. They begin to develop that even more around the age 40, because they want to have purpose and meaning. People crave purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
They're really lost without it. And so by developing these, doesn't matter what age you are, by developing these further, you become a better functioning adult, which makes you more effective in dealing with others, dealing with yourself, and dealing with outside circumstances.
You said that we naturally obtain all of these over time, but would you say that most people are more unaware versus aware of it?
Well, these are instinctive, so these are part of our human DNA. These are part of our natural instinct to survive. Without these 12 capacities, we are inhibited, and we are incapacitated in some way. So absolutely, these are more automatic emotional safeguards that we have for survival. So we have a natural proclivity and a greater sense of um, of need to develop these capacities based on a survival standpoint. So they will develop in some way. Again, it's usually outside forces from others and our interactions in society that inhibit the development of these capacities in whatever way.
So here's a follow-up question. So if we are pretty much, we hit a certain age, we just naturally instinctively have all of these fundamentals in us. We go out and to and fro, but we still choose to be dickheads and, pardon my language, we continuously go out here and just run free and wild, and like Sydney said, we hit 40 or we get up there in age and we see that time is speeding up and things are happening around us and we have to be a little more serious. Is that what I'm guessing, or what I'm assuming is that we know what's happening around us, we decide and choose to play Russian roulette with our future and with our life from the time we are fully self-aware to where we can't do it no more, and that's what's happening? Am I close, or am I a little bit?
Kind of. By the way, I love geeking out on this topic. I could talk about this like for days, but like I said, there is a level of development that a person has, and that level of development is going to dictate, especially early on. The early years are going to be the most foundational years. The ages between 2 and 16, those are going to be the most important years for development. And the age between 2 and 6 deal with the first foundational four. The first one being mentalization and reflective functioning. If that one is violated in any way, you're going to see a lot of problems in a person's behavior. And the ways in which people act out, these are more this is more a symptomology of something being wrong with their core development. Something was not taken care of. There was some kind of emotional abandonment that was there, or there was a lack of attunement between themselves and their caregiver that brought them to the state that they are. So while everyone has these 12 capacities developed in some capacity, pun intended, there's going to be a need for further investigation as a person does not have them developed in the proper way. By proper way, I mean developed in a sense where they feel they are at cause and in control of their lives at all times, where the intrusive thoughts are at a minimum, and their desire to do good and be not only a productive member of society, but also follow their desire for purpose and meaning. If those things are inhibited, it's because something else went off the rails along the way. And it is not their fault, but it becomes their responsibility as an adult to find out what that is and how they can correct it.
It's interesting. This kind of makes me think of a book that I'm reading right now, The Stranger by Albert Camus. And the book is about a man that is going through his life, or at least the book focuses on a certain portion of his life. And he basically has that problem where he has the inability to take responsibility for anything he does. And the premise of the book is he basically is on a beach, and the sun glare is in his eyes, and he's constantly complaining about the sun throughout the book. And he shoots a man, and he basically blames the sun for him doing this, and he continues to not accept responsibility up until I think basically the end, or even at the end he kind of alludes that he still hasn't really taken responsibility. But that's kind of what you can expect from somebody that has that damage, is they can go through their life hurting people left and right, and they still don't comprehend that they could possibly be the problem, that they could be the one causing all of this harm around them, and it's everyone else did it.
And this is the difference between an external and internal locus of control. And for those who don't understand that term, the external locus of control is the whole idea that everything else around me controls my decisions, my actions, my thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. I have no control of it. It's all my environment that dictates it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the easiest way to sum this up is I'm a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the mindset of someone with an external locus of control. Someone with an internal locus of control are going to understand that there are 5 things that they can control. Only 5. Your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your decisions, and your actions. Everything else is outside of your control, as it's supposed to be. And even though those are only 5 things you can control, those are only 5 things you need to control in order to effectively deal with your environment in a way that best suits you and gets you the best outcome possible for yourself and for those around you.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be considered for what an adult entails, at least from my perspective, because we'll have disagreements or arguments, or we'll get into situations with people over things that, like, they decided to do that. They said this. They stole from that person. They lied to you. They broke your heart. You didn't do it to them. Or, like, there's some things that you will get angry and pissed off for. You'll lose your entire life over. I give you one quick little story. I was just watching a video early on YouTube. The guy was a military man, and his wife was living in a property that he had bought back in 2018. So he was still overseas. The owner of the property at some point began to have relations with the wife. He had no idea of what was going on. Well, he returns from deployment, reunites with his wife. He notices that her behavior has changed. She's dressing different. She's on her phone more. So him being the guy that he is, he's trained how to, he starts to do surveillance on her. He starts tracking and being covert. He eventually finds out that she has been dealing with the property manager. So what happens? He develops a strategy to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He does everything to keep the paper trail off of him. He buys something called a IED or something. That's like some type of and he places
Improvised
it
explosive
within.
device.
Right.
Yikes.
He puts it in the property, knowing her routine and how they interact. He camps out 700 feet away from the property, and then he detonates. He blows up the entire house with both of them sitting next to each other in the house.
Yikes.
And it just reminds me of this right here, what you're saying about there's only 5 things that you can control. You can't help what she did. I understand you're hurting, but God rest their soul, that had nothing to do with you. That wasn't a reflection on you. That was something that happened because of choices that she made.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people understand this. And I use an extreme example, but I said that only to say this. There's things that happen in our life because of other people that they're dealing with things that have nothing to do with us. So I think a part of being an adult is knowing how to adjust, how to assess, and how to handle certain situations when they come up. But that's just my 2 cents.
I definitely I can see what you mean with that story, because that is something I see. Like, my husband and I like to watch court cases and stuff like that just for fun, particularly the funny ones. And the number of people that use the excuse like, "Oh, well, she made me do this. I had to do this because she did this to me." It's crazy how people can actually think they can get away with crimes by saying that, "Oh, well, someone else made me emotional, so you need to excuse the crime that I committed while I was emotional." A lot of people, and even if nobody else causes it, people like to use that as an excuse. "Oh, I can't because I'm feeling this way. Oh, I'm not, I did this thing because I was feeling upset." People tend to think that, or they tend to assume that if you feel it, you have to act on it. But there's also that level of efficacy that I think is important for adults to have, is realizing that you don't actually have to act out on every single feeling that you experience. I think that that's probably what we subconsciously I distinguish adults from kids, is the ones that are able to set aside their emotions and understand that um, just because they exist doesn't mean you have to actually display them.
Yeah.
What more do you want from me?
um, yeah, I'm just gonna. Really, there's nothing more to say about this because it's already been said. I will add though that anyone who feels that their emotions should excuse their crime, their parents failed them,
Mm-hmm.
and they were not taught how to be an upstanding member of society, and their behavior was excused way too often as children because their parents did not want to do the hard thing, which was actually parent your children and teach them right from wrong. And I pity a fool who has to deal with that. At the same time, I I mean I've said it more times than I can think. F your feelings, because at the end of the day, they really don't matter. I don't feel like doing this. I really don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're an adult, and adulting requires certain things. And if you're not willing to do that, then you know there's yeah.
Spoken like a teacher.
This is I have no sympathy for people who make decisions and who refuse to improve themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I've been someone who has been on both sides of that. I've had the victim mentality that the world is against me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've developed the mentality of I am at cause of my reality. And I have to tell you that being at cause is a lot more fulfilling. It
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot more work, but it's a hell of a lot more fulfilling. I'd rather be a victor than a victim
Mm-hmm.
anytime.
Yeah.
Because as someone who is at cause of my life, I decide what I'm going to experience. No one else can decide that for me. Nor would I want them to, because I don't trust anyone else but me, because I don't know what their level, the quality of experience has been in life. And I can't reliably assure they're going to have my best interest at heart. Actually, I can assure that they won't have my best interest at heart. So it is only up to me to be able to create the kind of experience that I want. Anyone else who thinks they can do otherwise, they've either been sold something or they're trying to sell something.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
to be honest with you, I think a lot of what was covered here gives you a good idea of what an adult should represent or what it should resemble to a certain degree. Maybe there's still some gray areas there, but I think for the most part, we kind of have discernment. We know who is operating on what kind of level based on actions, discussions, seeing a person during the day. You can't trust everything that you hear and see, but it's kind of like almost unspoken language. In some cases, like my grandparents, they were adults. They had things about them that were probably not as adult like, but if I had to mimic anyone's blueprint, it would definitely be them. Just off of the strength that accountability was always one of their favorite languages. It wasn't something that they tried to throw off on everybody else and blame them for this, shortchange for this. It wasn't like that. It was like, all right, I feel short this week. I got to make up for it. It was that type of energy. So, um, a lot of parents have failed their children. If you're still asking yourself what an adult represents or what it resembles, I would dare ask yourself, do you represent that? Are you carrying yourself the way that
An adult
would
would.
right, you know? From the comment sections to the YouTube videos to the tweets to the repost, you would think that you're still in middle school with some of these people. A lot of these folks are our age that act like that. So I mean, take it for what it's worth. Those are my final thoughts on it. If y'all have anything else you want to add to it before we close out.
I think that last thing that you said, Jason, summed it up super well. So I don't think I have anything else to add. Yeah. I am curious though, how do they decide what numbers, like what score you have to get to be considered an adult? Is it like you have to get 5 out of 5 or like 3 out of 5 or
It's
like...
an evaluation that's done for each of the behaviors. There's a specific evaluation that a clinician uses to determine that specific axis.
Is it like an average, or is it more like where you are on the chart type of?
So the score ranges from 1 to 5, but only 1, 3, and 5 are calculated. So if you, and really it's based on understanding the indicators. So 1 is going to have a very specific set of indicators, where so will a 3 and so will a 5.
Okay.
A 5 is well adjusted because this is what it means. A 3 is slightly dysregulated or socially dysregulated because this is what it means. A 1 is severely dysregulated because this is what it means. And so by using that, you're able to understand where on that scale they are and how far from being well regulated they are as an individual based on that that capacity. And so then all 12, well, you have all 12 capacities taken into account, and you have a good idea of how well adjusted they are as a person.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool.
So yeah, there is a scientific process to it. I am going to add though to this discussion that you know that you're an adult when actually one of the best ways of determining adulthood has to be Abraham Maslow. His understanding of the hierarchy of needs, especially when he updated it before he died.
We need to have a video on him.
Say what?
We need to have a whole video on him.
He's phenomenal. I love Maslow.
Same here.
His hierarchy of needs are very on the spot. And idea that when you are self-actualized, this is just you being someone who can do the things that you need to do. Congratulations. This is what it means to be able to act as an adult. But it doesn't mean that you are an adult. An adult is actually going one step further. And this was the part that Maslow updated just before he died. I think updated like 8 months before he died. And he added the self-transcendence as the final piece of the hierarchy of needs. And the self-transcendence is acting in a way for the service of others, for the good of others. When you are doing that, you know that you are an adult.
When you've gone beyond yourself.
Exactly. When you're no longer acting for your best interests, but you're using your interests to act on the best interests of others, that is when you are truly acting like an adult. And that is what true adulthood is. Because it is the contributing to society in a meaningful way that furthers its advancement.
There is a lot of our politicians that have definitely not reached that stage.
Yeah, like 90% of them.
The corporations as well. I'm like, man, that's what we need to do. We just need to get them to reach the transcendent stage.
Good luck with that.
For real.
It'll take time. Eventually it'll happen, but I mean, it just takes time.
They'll be forced to once things collapse because they made it happen.
Yep.
Well, folks, man, as always, pleasure to have these discussions with y'all. This was a good one. I learned some stuff here. I would actually be interested to see men and women get tested. Like, just put everybody to that test to see what numbers everybody gets, and see how people look at themselves in the mirror afterwards. That would be very, very interesting.
There's quite a number of people I'd be interested to see what their score is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Do me a solid. Make sure you go follow Jason. Make sure you go follow Miss Sydney. Everything down at the bottom. If you want to keep in contact with me, keep the topics coming. If you have anything that you would like to see us discuss, email me, hit me up, let me know, and we'll do our best to bring some answers to it, as long as it's sensible and reasonable. No silly, goofy stuff, you know what I'm saying? None of the trolling and all that. But yeah, I hope everybody has a blessed evening, and we will see you guys Thursday. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm sporadic like that, but Cryptic Creed Paranormal returns tomorrow, so tap in. Until next time, this is Assembly Excellence signing out. Oh,
tomorrow's my birthday.
Oh, hold up. Happy early birthday, brother.
So, are you an adult?
Some days I am. Yeah, some days I wish I wasn't, but you know, it's like I still have to do this again.
I heard what was it, focus or like attentiveness or something on there, and I'm like, damn it, I'm not an adult yet.
Oh man. Hey, I don't know if you got anything special planned, bro, but I hope you enjoy yourself, enjoy your family. Some people don't celebrate their birthdays. Some people go all out for it. Whatever you do, make sure you just treat yourself and take care of yourself during your day. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
But I'm gonna let y'all up off here. Y'all enjoy the rest of your night. If y'all need to reach me, you know where I'm at.
All right. Have a good night. See you next time.